Hi, my name's John, and I was doing this recording to share with you my experience with being involved in the LifeForce Assembly movement under Kim Goguen, and briefly with the UNN and the field messengers in the last reformation of UNN. I'm a little nervous. I didn't expect I would be to talk about this, but I wanted, this has been just kind of running through my mind a lot the last couple of weeks as I've seen and realized a few things. And it's just, this is something that I want to put out there for people to listen to who might be wondering about things or questioning things, and that it could be helpful. It's something basically I wished I would have known, or that some people would have shared as I was getting involved. Um, so I hope hopefully this will be helpful to you. So I first got involved, excuse me, in the early winter of 2021. I saw someone talk on a show about Kim and about how she had the security clearance that was above Trump, and heard a bit of the story about Marduk and the control system of Earth. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I had only just recently woken up, so to speak, to understand about what the deep state was, and the cabal was. And I was like, gosh, this is fascinating. COVID woke me up. I had always been fairly comfortable. I would question things deeply in a way, but in some ways didn't question that deeply. And then during COVID, I was like, oh, something is really wrong here. And so then I learned about the cabal and everything. So, okay, anyway. And then I briefly got into Q too. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And I actually thought there was going to be, mass arrests and all these things and the white hats. And then when that kept not happening, I was like, huh. And then I found Kim, and then Kim would talk about that and how they would always talk about these things they never happen. I was like, no kidding, that's true. And then I think she's really telling the truth. And so I was really fascinated by Kim's story. I watched so many of her interviews, and was on all the Life Force calls in the beginning, and I got really involved. I'll tell you how I got involved. So anyway, okay. So then I realized, okay, Q doesn't make sense. A lot of these white hat things just don't make sense. This stuff that Kim is saying really makes sense. I really appreciated the backstory that went back thousands, many thousands of years. That it wasn't just about, you know, the United States being this corporate thing, and it wasn't. It was just a deeper story that had some spiritual implications that really made sense to me. So I started to visit some assemblies. I really love working with groups of people, particularly when there's a spiritual impulse for the betterment of humanity. And if there's a mix of some politics and social programs and stuff, I just think wonderful. So I loved visiting assemblies. And right away, my wife and I started an assembly here in Maine. And at the time, there was some wonderful people out of British Columbia who were helping assemblies get started, understand what sovereignty means, understand how to be operating in the public, what it means to be du jour. And, we just go on these calls with people from around the world. And it's amazing. All these people wanting to learn and help together. And right around that time was when Assembly in the Box started to happen. And there was someone out of Florida who was leading that. She just stepped into this to had these ideas that were really good. And I don't know how exactly it formed. Kim and Tank, I think, might have asked her, or she just naturally did. And so she started taking over these trainings. And again, it was people from all within our country in America and around the world going to these trainings. I think they were every other week or so. And it was just amazing, all these people forming assemblies. And I was visiting many other assemblies in my time being involved. I visited most of the assemblies in our country, many of them around the world, some in South America, many in Africa and India and Asia. I became involved in what later was the PGSD. But anyway, so Assembly in the Box happened, right? And there was this simple, fairly simple. I mean, it was a little all the paperwork's kind of complicated, but it's very broken down what you need to do to become operating in the public and to be able to get ratified and to really change the world. And that movement grew pretty quickly. My wife and I also started a New England Assembly support group, so all the states in our region could get together and connect. And at the time, Vermont and New Hampshire weren't yet assembled, and so we helped to like connect with people there and get everyone operating in the public, because at the time we needed a certain amount of states to do that to come together for a national assembly to really affect change. So that was really gaining momentum, and then all of a sudden there was just one day, oh, Christie's not doing that. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not wasn't going to mention names. This person wasn't doing that anymore, and this new person was put in charge to lead something, and it was called the PGSD, the People's Government Service Division. It was like, wow, there wasn't really an explanation as to how or why that happened. It was like there was just so much momentum, and then all of a sudden it was just shifted. So it's like, oh, that's weird. So I reached out to the woman who was doing assembly in the box. I had worked with her a bit, and I asked her, well, what really happened? What's going on? And she was very diplomatic about, look, they changed their mind, essentially. They shifted gears, and no hard feelings. I'm going to go do what I need to do, and just do what you think is right. And I was like, wow. And she told me what Kim and Tank had told her, and I was like, oh gosh, this seems so weird. And then I also reached out to the person who was appointed as the new, you know, leader of the PGSD. And at the time, I had not resonated with him very much, really been on different sides of an issue with him, and didn't really think he was a great fit for that, whatever, from my experience. So I reached out to him too and had a great conversation, surprisingly. I was like, wow, it was really a nice conversation. Really seemed to want to help and to have a fresh start. And we really had a good connection. We really agreed on just wanting to be helpful to this movement and to help in the world. And so I was really impressed by that. And I thought, well, let's just see what he does, see what it's like. And so I watched over time what he was doing and the work and the way he was gathering things and organizing us. And I was pretty impressed. So we really worked with that. And one thing that was really disturbing, though, is this woman who was doing it and this man who is now doing it had such different accounts of what happened and what Kim and Tank had said. And they both felt to me like they were telling the truth, but I just couldn't integrate. I just couldn't figure out how or why that was. But anyway, that happened. So, and also I should mention, when I first became involved, there was this whole situation with the guy, the Viking, and so he split off or got kicked out, and so then there was this, assembly in the box person that moved on and or got kicked out, depending how you look at it, and it was a big upheaval, and it was unsettling to be coming in and seeing, why is this happening and why is this happening again. But anyway, I just think, okay, let's just focus on being positive. I was really touched by all the connections I had with people, around the world, and all this assembly movement was so inspiring to me. I wanted to do more. So then we worked with, we were just about finished with the assembly in the box process. Like, okay, it's a different process. We've got to redo some things. So we redid things, did all this paperwork stuff, which so boring, honestly. Oh my gosh. But it seemed like if that's what's necessary to do this to help change things, then let's just do it. So we did that. And then oh, I should mention too, when I first became involved, there was all this talk about Kim was going to release, it was 3,000 something dollars. I don't remember the number, to everyone's bank account in the world out of this funding, because she was the guardian of the global assets. I might not have all the terms right, but that seemed fascinating and a little, I don't know, not super believable, but well, could be. And when I was visiting assemblies, everyone was so excited about that, because mostly because it was going to wake everybody up and they were going to realize what's really happening and come to join assemblies. And people were trying to prepare for this influx of people kind of come to their assemblies after this big awakening thing. And what, that didn't happen, of course. I mean, that's been some years. So I personally was never into the funding. I actually thought funding would not be good based on the way the assemblies were functioning, ours included. It was not a super high level of functioning, a lot of power struggles and conflicts, and giving assemblies a whole bunch of money who were struggling to just cooperate didn't seem like it'd be all that helpful for humanity, in my opinion. So I didn't think the consciousness of assemblies and of humanity at that time would really benefit from funding in that way. So I was never too hung up on that, but it was odd the way it just didn't happen. Okay, so then anyway, so the PGSD happens, and now the focus is on, from what I remember, funding for assemblies. So everyone's working on their budgets. People did work on their budgets through Assembly in the Box also, but now it's and there's a person who's in this position of the global head of financial whatever. I forget the title, sorry. And it was and he would explain, when Kim releases funding, this is how it's going to happen. And this is what you need to have in place for your assembly. And this is how your budget needs to be in order to receive funding and use it effectively. And I began to go on to calls. I was asked to be involved in the PGSD, and I began to go on calls with the director of the PGSD and this global finance director just to observe, what their, because they do this orientation meeting. So anyone who was forming an assembly would have to have an orientation meeting with PGSD to get this information, to understand how to get started. And the PGSD also created this website with all this step-by-step information. This is what you do. This is how you do it. So I went on a lot of these calls and was just really impressed with how much time and energy these people were putting in. I mean, it was a lot. I myself was putting a lot of time in at this point too. We had our weekly public assembly meeting. We had our bi-weekly New England meeting. We had our weekly officers meeting for within our assembly, and then I was starting, and we had the weekly LifeForce calls, and then I was starting to get involved in the PGSD, and so I was at that point or soon after given the position of assembly relations. So at the time, the structure was the director of the PGSD, director of assembly relations, and then me in assembly as in the assembly relations, and then all the PGSD liaisons, which there were many. There were a few for America, a few for Canada, you know, Africa, India, Asia Pacific. There was like a team of, I think it was around 30 people, and we met. Oh gosh, that's right. At that time, we had 3 meetings a week, and then trainings sometimes once a week, sometimes every other week. And then I was also going on these other calls as to orient new assemblies just to learn, and it was a lot of time. And then part of my job was to help review all the websites for all the assemblies in the world, and it was just me and the director of assembly relations doing this, and she had done an amazing amount of work. There was this workflow document of like all the assemblies in the world, each country, each state or province in the country, each county within that, and then all the documentation they had was all in there, where they were at, records of the notes of their meetings with their PGSD liaisons, what that was like, what their status was like, what they needed to do to get ready for ratification. It was a tremendous amount of work that went into this, and the website that was created was just so full of information. And yeah, so and on these calls too were very beautiful. Many of them. Oh, there were people in Africa who were risking their lives to be a part of an assembly movement in some instances because of the political climate, and like if people had found out that they were involved in this, they would be putting their lives in danger. People would be moved to tears, expressing such gratitude to have this help, to have these meetings, and to have a way where they might be able to help the people in their community and to receive funding and to like what they could do with that. And it was just very touching and very inspiring to be a part of. So yeah, so anyway, so that happens. So all right, so then there's all this focus on when Kim releases funding for the assemblies, and Kim would talk about these life force calls. Assemblies, are you ready? There's this power void because all the cabal has been taken out, all the people in these top, positions or whatever have been taken out or removed or no longer in operation. And so assemblies have to be ready to step up and take the place. Otherwise, something else is going to take the place. So it was like, my goodness, we have to really do the best we can to be ready. This is a serious thing because it did make, if what Kim was saying was true, that did make sense. If there's this power void, then what's going to fill it?